KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
You are listening to KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas, Fort Worth. Pledge now. Call 972-647-1893 now to make your pledge.
Yeah. This is William, your videographer for the KNON talk shows. You can watch Workers Meet by going to the KNON.org website, click on schedules, and choose Workers Meet's page. Scroll to the bottom and choose your favorite show to watch. This show will be ready for viewing by Tuesday lunchtime. Have a great day.
Get off my lawn.
Watergate! Watergate!
Jim Schutze, back with Get Off My Lawn. I can't hear myself, but that's true a lot of the day anyway, whether I'm on the radio or not. Here I am. I'm here with Jeff Siegel of the Advocate newspapers and the very curmudgeonly Jeff Siegel. What is the official reason, Jeff, that you are a curmudgeon?
The official reason I am a curmudgeon is that I say things that people don't necessarily like to hear.
Okay, all right.
Plus, I'm old.
Old, yeah, that's an important part of being a curmudgeon. Dallas writer Eric Celeste referred to both of us last week on the show as curmudgeons. And
curmudgeonly, even.
Curmudgeonly, or that's better than curmudgeon-esque. And I'm proud to be a curmudgeon. I want to remind you that this is our pledge drive at KNON. We need your help badly. We're at 972-647-1893. Any contribution that you can make makes a sorry about my cough, a huge difference. It helps Dallas keep this strong alternative voice on the air. And man, in Dallas, the alternative is important, is it not?
There is. Well, actually, you're about the only alternative, Jim.
Oh my God, it's worse than I thought. We're toast. 972-647-1893. Give us a call. We're going to be talking about the city council election. Before we got started, though, Jeff and I were discussing some unfortunate lore here in Dallas, which has to do with the city council members who lack, and I feel so bourgeois in bringing this up, but I've just learned over the years that it's important. City council members who lack visible means of support, and what happens to them. We have a tragic and terrible history of city council members being packed off to the federal pokey here, and Jeff and I were talking about how I hope this doesn't sound callous, but to long-range observers and journalists like ourselves and people and journalists who worked in other cities, the embarrassing thing is the small amount of money that it takes.
The thing is you're always going to have corruption. It's just like one of those things that always happens. I mean, there's always been prostitution and so forth. You're always going to have corruption. But what's always struck me about Dallas in the 30 years I've been here is that it's so easy to corrupt people. If I'm from Chicago, right?
Yeah.
You're from Detroit.
Right.
I mean, we're talking corruption.
Right.
When Jim Thompson, he was the U.S. attorney in the 70s in Chicago, put all of the Democratic machine guys in jail. He put guys in jail who had mansions and 17 cars. And I mean, they weren't just on the take. They were on the take.
Yeah. If you're corrupt, you should have at least 32 bad Italian sculptures in your backyard, 4 fountains,
Exactly.
and a collection of Cadillacs that would make Elvis envious. Yeah, and here, and I mean, I didn't see anything funny at all about the tragedy of Don Hill, former council member who was sent to prison for 18 years. I watched the trial. I knew Hill a little bit. He was a smart, a really likable guy with a lot of promise. But according to the testimony, while he was on the take, he couldn't pay his water bill.
And if you're going to, and that's just it. And that's why you've got to have a visible means of support, because otherwise it's just too easy to buy you. And if it's too easy to buy you, the people who are buying you aren't going to respect you. And what's the point of that? And I'm actually, I mean that in a serious sort of way.
No. And sometimes in a weird way, when the corruption happens at that level, you don't quite get that you're being bought. You know, Al Lipscomb used to, I covered that trial too. And he said, well, what was that guy's name? Mr. Floyd, the owner of Yellow Cab.
The taxi cab company,
and
yeah.
He said he would just give me a little money once in a while to help me out. And then they'd go into it a little more. Well, now, how much was it? Well, like $50. And okay, the time when he gave you $50, did you vote in such and such a way on the taxi cab law? Yes, I did. Was that the way you were gonna vote before you got the $50? Well, no. and so, you know, the testimony was that he sold his vote for $50.
And it's so sad that but I think, you know what, Jim, it goes back to what we were talking about last week, is how little respect city government has among the people who run Dallas.
Yeah. It's viewed as a sort of a false flag operation. You have to, the law says you got to have this thing down there called city government. And it's a pain and it's a waste of time, and but you got to do it, and so you just run this thing and it's kind of like bread and circuses for the people.
The few people like us who actually pay attention.
Yeah. I remember when I hadn't been in Texas very long, I was starting to figure these things out about Dallas, and I got shipped down to Houston for a while to work on a corruption story there. There was a guy who was complaining. He called us up and said that he was outraged that he had paid the standard bribe to the mayor to get a contract to sell the city garbage trucks, and that man had the effrontery to require him to go out and buy him a sport coat in addition, and that just wasn't right. So I went to talk to him, and I said, now, we have to be very careful about our language. You say you paid, and I don't think he said bribe, he said the standard amount. So you say you paid the standard amount to the mayor to get this contract, perhaps you're referring to a performance bond or something. And he said, well, I don't know what that is. He said, I just put a bunch of cash in an envelope and took it over there.
That sounds like a bribe to me.
And I thought, this is good, honest corruption, the way it's supposed to be. A bunch of money. and not buying a guy a suit. I sometimes wonder, there was this moment when Albert Lipscomb was elected to the council. This is a guy who had earned his living however he could, selling vegetables in the market.
I bought vegetables from him and his guys at the farmer's market, yeah.
And people were, in his community, embarrassed that Mr. Lipscomb didn't dress well for his city council appearances. And so all of a sudden he started showing up in better clothes. And I even thought, okay, good. That Al, this is going to be good for people, that Al looks a little sharper. Then I learned that someone with an interest in some of the outcome in the votes was not providing the suits, giving him a discount. And I thought, if you're going to get his vote, can you just give him the suit?
Gosh.
Yeah.
It's just, that's just no respect at all.
No.
I mean, can you imagine a New York City cop putting up with that kind of foolishness?
Yeah.
You'd be arrested in 2 seconds.
Sure.
Until you actually gave him the envelope with the cash in it.
Right. Yeah. I think it's a sort of an arrestable offense there to show disrespect by offering too small one.
Exactly.
Yeah. What is that next to your driver's license? A 20, sir? A 20? Well, anyway, I'm looking at the Dallas Morning News editorial page today with their endorsements for the city council. And we see the usual suspects here. We see Jennifer Starbuck Gates in District 13, who's going to be a reliable messenger for the development interests. And
As opposed to her opponent, who, of course, was going to be a flaming Trotsky guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm not sure how to judge that one. We see the sort of basically virtually unopposed Southern Dallas candidates, Carolyn Davis. We see Monica Alonso in Oak Cliff, and the question would be, who else? Monica Alonso's opponents are Azumba Nook X and Sixto Raymond Salinas. I don't know those guys, but Monica Alonso seems like a safe choice because she's already there.
Right.
Carolyn Davis, same thing. Von Seal Jones Hill.
Is that your favorite? Is she your favorite member of the council?
In a perverse way, she is.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking you were going to say.
Yeah. She's the meanest, nastiest member of the council, and I kind of respect her for that. Sometimes you want to see them just reach out with those claws and draw some blood, and she does that every once in a while. Almost always on the side of the Dallas Citizens Council, which doesn't make me happy. But there you have it. What's interesting, however, here is they're endorsing Scott Griggs in District 1 in Oak Cliff, Adam Medrano, District 2, Philip Kingston, District 14.
I think, particularly with the Kingston endorsement, and you'll, because you're of course the world's ranking authority on the underwater tollway, but when the news, for whatever reasons, decided that it really wasn't a good idea after all, and actually wrote things saying that the toll road wasn't a good idea after all, I think they've actually come to their senses about that and understand. And we should mention that Angela Hunt has endorsed Kingston,
Right.
and I think there might actually be some respect there for what Hunt did and for what Kingston would do on the council from the news, which of course is hard to believe. But
I'm so afraid of agreeing with you. I'm afraid my heart will be broken before I get up from the microphone. By the way, we want to hear from you about these things at 972-647-1893. 972-647-1893. I'm here with Jeff Siegel talking about the city council election, also reminding you that this is our pledge drive week. If you can call us up and offer us a pledge, it means that you are keeping us on the air. You're taking ownership of this radio station. You are having a significant influence on the media climate and the cultural climate in the city. This is the city's best music station. It's the only place where you're going to hear really great, independent, small artists who are not being shoved down your throat by some huge national conglomerate.
to make the music so it all sounds exactly the same.
Right. So you really make a difference in making this city what it is if you can call us up and offer a pledge at 972-647-1893. We're talking about District 14, and Jeff has offered the interesting theory that the morning news, you think, has been freed from the shackle of the underwater toll road?
I don't know that it's been freed from the shackle so much as the idea that having a little more, some of the people at the news having a little more perspective than the people on the council, the mayor, the city manager, and the idea that the toll road must be built regardless. I think someone at the news, several people at the news understand there, A, is no money for the toll road, regardless of whether it's going to be underwater or not, and that Dallas is going to need things in the future, and it's wasted effort to try to convince the federal government, which doesn't have money, to pay for the toll road when there are other things the federal money could be spent on.
Wow, I've always viewed the toll road thing, and this is kind of inside journalism, maybe, but I've always viewed it as sort of a tragedy for the news, because they're capable of doing such good stuff in other areas and building up credibility, and then, man, like in the 2007 referendum, they just threw their credibility in the toilet over the toll road. They required poor Steve Blow to write columns in favor of the toll road. That's a crime against nature. And it's like making the comic page be full of pro-toll road comics. Is there still a comic page? I don't turn very far back into
they're all very small, and you and I, with the problems that we have seeing, I think we'd have a hard time reading them.
Yeah, and they're probably this Gen X stuff, right? This really weird stuff that
your son would like.
Yeah, right. So that's why I don't turn to that page. Anyway, the endorsements today on the Morning News editorial page are very, very interesting, because they include people that could be considered in the weird, we've talked about this too, these sort of values that are brought forward from whenever, 1983. In normal terms, it would be hard to view Angela Hunt as a commie. I mean,
yes,
she's a she's a conservative in a lot of ways. She's a pro neighborhood development, family values kind of middle class person.
Exactly.
Pro economic development on Lower Greenville.
Exactly.
But if you have this set of values which says if you don't support the toll road, you're a communist, then you got a lot of communists.
One of the things that surprised me when I moved here, and it took me a long time to understand, was that the typical labels for politics don't apply in Dallas municipal elections, and that's got nothing to do with the fact that they're supposed to be nonpartisan.
Yeah. One
of the things that I discovered is you could have two people who are just as conservative in every single sort of national issue. As soon as it got to local stuff, they could hate each other and be completely on opposite sides over neighborhood development stuff.
And it gets very personal.
Exactly. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially in East Dallas.
Yes.
Philip Kingston, the guy they've endorsed in District 14, did Kingston wind up being a Republican or a Democrat? He was a Republican, right?
If I'm not, if you would know this better than I would, but I believe you're correct.
And then but I think he turned at some point during the election. He became a Democrat. I could be wrong about that.
and that's just it. And it doesn't matter, because none of those issues. Abortion is not an issue. Gun control is not an issue.
Right.
Marriage is not an issue.
Yeah.
And the issue I'll never forget this. Years and years ago, Glenn Box. I'm sure you remember Glenn Box. Yes. Somebody wanted to know about running against Glenn Box, and they asked me, what do we have to do to beat Glenn Box? And I said, well, what you got to do is you got to ask the simple questions. Does the garbage get picked up?
Right.
Do the streets get paved?
Yes.
Those sorts of things. And they looked at me as if that was the dumbest thing they'd ever heard. And they said, we've got some money, and we really want to do some issues. And I said, you don't understand. This is a municipal election. None of that stuff that everybody else says is important.
But people will kill over the garbage. We'll see you back in a minute. This is Jim Schutze with Get Off My Lawn and Jeff Siegel.
KNON depends on listener support to stay on the air, and now is the time for you to help keep this show on the air. If you like what you're hearing and want to show your appreciation for great community radio, pick up the phone and call to make a pledge. Call 972-647-1893 or go online to knon.org. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Without the support of our listeners, there won't be any community radio on the air in North Texas. So take a few minutes to make a pledge. Call 972-647-1893 or go online to knon.org.
When they're gone for good. This is Scott from KNON's Texas Blues Radio telling you don't miss out on some great blues. KNON's Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 Blues CD. It's a CD put together by real blues fans for real blues fans like you. Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 features great local blues from Michael J. and the Paul Bird Band, JJ and the Detonators, the Chris Watson Band, the Two Tones, Rough Cut Blues Band, Jeff Stone with Charlie Love, Dave Millsap, Sirloin and the Ass-Kicking Machine, Tutu Jones, Blues Boy Bo, Buddy Whittington, Andrea Dawson, Kirkland James, Sonny Colley, and Johnny Red and the Roosters. Get a copy now at Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, Record Town in Fort Worth, and in Dallas at Bill's Records. This is a Dallas Blues collector's item. A very limited amount of vinyl copies can be found at Forever Young Records, the sponsor of this great blues project. CD downloads are available at cdbaby.com. Whether you get it as a download, on vinyl, or on CD, all the proceeds will benefit KNON. For more info on Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, visit knon.org.
Jim Schutze, back with Get Off My Lawn, here with Jeff Siegel. We were talking about the city council races, and we were talking about Philip Kingston in District 14 and what people actually care about. Now, Kingston is a guy maybe solidly in the Angela Hunt mold, maybe more so, in that he's a pretty conservative guy on issues that count, business in these elections, development issues, neighborhood issues. I guess what do you mean by conservative? By conservative, I mean you want to serve and preserve the wishes of the people who already live there.
You don't want to take city money and spend it on something silly or wasteful. That strikes me as the definition of conservatism.
Yeah, and you don't want to allow somebody to come in with something crazily disruptive so he can make a quick buck in a way that will be corrosive of the ongoing value and tenor of the neighborhood.
Or, most importantly in Dallas, why would you want to have city money spent on something in a neighborhood that will lower property value?
Yeah, but both Kingston and Hunt, I think, are solidly not in the vein of absolute agenderism.
No.
Which says there can be nothing done, nothing new.
And I think. And I wrote something nice about Angela in The Advocate a couple of months ago, a farewell sort of thing, because I will miss her. Not only was she easily the most intelligent person on the council, but one of the hardest working. And if she did something, she had a reason for doing it that you could disagree with, but it made sense.
Yeah, and she'd tell you what it was. She'd show her cards.
Yes. And also the other thing I'll never forget, for anybody who hasn't read my stuff, the Timber Creek Shopping Center on Northwest Highway, which is talk about a 1983 abomination, and which threw working people out of their houses so that a real estate developer could make a lot of money. And I know Angela told you this, that's probably the most regret she ever had with a vote, because she voted to change the zoning and throw everybody out.
Yeah.
And that to me made sense. It's a perspective. First off, she admitted she thought she was wrong, which I can count on my fist here the number of times anybody else on the rest of the council has ever admitted. But it shows a perspective that's just completely and entirely lacking downtown.
Yeah. That Timber Creek was one of those votes where, in fact, the city council created value by voting. It's not as if there was value sitting there that some guy had bought and he simply wanted to exploit. He didn't buy that. Actually, they didn't buy anything. They had options on it until they got the zoning. And the value was created by the vote. And as you say, it destroyed a stable, peaceful, pleasant, working-class neighborhood, which happened to be an apartment complex, but a really cool little apartment complex. Oh, well.
And so the world could have one more Walmart, or in this case, two Walmarts in the same location, and it's,
Yeah. Well, anyway. What about Jennifer Staubach Gates in District 13?
That's just, that's absolutely, to me, perhaps that's a microcosm of everything that's wrong. Not that this is not a knock on either of the people running.
Right.
This is not a criticism. I don't know them. I'm sure they're fine human beings. But to me, it's a microcosm of the problem with the way Dallas operates. Here you have two people who, for all practical purposes, two candidates for all practical purposes, will vote exactly the same way almost every time.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
One of them is backed by, and of course, I can't remember who's running against Jennifer Staubach Gates. I should know his name. He's got the big billboard on Central Expressway.
Well, I know his name, Jeff. How could you forget? I see right here in the newspaper in front of me, Leland Burke.
You've got Burke, who's endorsed by the two former members of the council,
right?
Who were, I know Mitch Rosansky's a pal of yours, but Mitch is most of the time voted as everyone would expect a guy who's a property owner and a real estate developer to vote, and so you're looking at it's just it. But by God, we're going to spend a lot of money because this is just what we have to do, and it's maybe that gets into the idea of we should have a real city council, but
oh no, we couldn't have that. And the thing I liked about Mitchell was that he always said stuff that I agreed with. He always wound up voting the other way. He would attack the city manager and the staff and make these great speeches about freedom and liberty and justice for all, and then vote with the developers.
Yeah.
But life's complicated. We have Christian Dietering. Christian on line 2. Christian, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Hey, thank you so much for your pledge, Christian.
I try to do what I can for you, sir.
Well, it makes a significant difference in our ability to stay here. I really, really appreciate it. This is our pledge week, and Christian has generously pledged and given us a generous support, and it really means a lot. And it means a lot to the city, I think. I really do believe that by making this pledge, you kind of take ownership of KNON and make a difference in the whole fabric of things. Did you have anything to say to us about our nattering here? Was that even remotely interesting? Or
Oh, yeah, I listen to your show every week, sir. I mean,
okay.
There was a time when I would not be up this early on Saturday, but now I kind of try to get up so I can hear you.
Oh, my God.
That is like, Jim, that is the highest praise in the world.
Christian, you and me both. How do you do it?
I had a question for you guys.
Yes.
The underwater tollway, is that in reference to the upper and lower decks that they want to do on 635?
No, sir, that would be first class and second class. Which is the BMW deck or the Lexus deck? Is it the upper or the lower?
I actually had somebody when I'd written something about this one time about what they're doing on LBJ, and I actually had somebody say to me that he thought it was a great idea that you could get all these rich people in their Lexuses and their BMWs and their Mercedes to pay to drive LBJ while the rest of us got off LBJ and went on Forest Lane.
Yeah, that is a good idea. I think, Christian, when they start enforcing this, the class difference on 635, they need to bring in the Park Cities Police because they have the expert at spotting certain vehicles, with certain kinds of people in them. And
so they'll know immediately, my 12-year-old Honda, that
you'll be on the side of the road on your face with a knee in between your shoulder blades. How dare you come out here in that piece of junk? Christian, what do you think about those two decks?
I think that anybody who has ever spent any time in Austin knew the minute that they heard about an upper and lower deck that it was really a terrible idea.
Yeah.
If you have ever sat in traffic in Austin, and that's all it does. It creates traffic.
Right.
Because people have to try and hop on or hop off
Right.
at the beginning or the end.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything except cause a bottleneck. That's just my opinion.
No, I think you have a whole bunch of research backing you up on that what you do is suck in more congestion.
And the other thing that's always, and maybe you know the answer to this, Christian, the other thing I've never been able to figure out when I drive through Austin is I'm never sure whether I'm supposed to go upper or lower.
We were just there. And my wife was saying, "Oh, now get on the upper, get on the upper, get on the upper." And then I'm driving along. She says, "Jim, we're on the lower." And I don't know how it happened. I think they've got some kind of a ray machine there that affects your mind, and they steer certain people to the lower one. Anyway, Christian, thank you so much for your contribution and for listening. Really, really appreciate it, sincerely.
No problem. Keep up the good work, sir.
Thanks. And anybody else listening, give us a call at 972-647-1893, 972-647-1893. Jeff Siegel and I have veered a little off our sworn topic here of city council elections. We are supposed to remind you also, this is the day of the election. So if you're a registered voter, please vote. If you're not a registered voter, please vote. Look, even if you're not technically a citizen, I'd like to see you out there at the polls.
Because that way, at least when everybody complains later about all the fraud, there may actually be some.
Yeah. Do you think, Jeff, that people should have to be actual earthlings in order to vote?
Well, once again, Jim, I come from Chicago, where we used to let dead people vote, I'm the wrong person to ask.
There's something beautifully spiritual about that, I think. Why should voting end at the grave? So as long as we're veering way off topic here anyway,
yes.
What is going on in West? Do you have any thoughts about the arrest of this EMS guy there? And
you would like to believe that it's got nothing to do with what happened and that it's merely an industrial accident compounded by the fact that it's in the middle of a small town next to a school because this is Texas and that's how we do things here.
Sure.
That's what you would like to believe. But the secrecy, and you've dealt with the ATF guys before, and of all of the branches of the federal law enforcement, they're among the most secretive, if I recall correctly. And they also, so if they do something and they just don't do something like the FBI does just to do something.
Yeah. There's a weird wrinkle here that I was discussing the other day with Patrick Williams, our managing editor at the Dallas Observer. If you find out that some of these EMS and fireman guys had a little bit of a thing about fire and explosions, that's not actually the biggest news in the world. And it doesn't necessarily connect to this. This is a sort of little-known story that if you went through fire departments and volunteer fire departments everywhere,
in particular volunteer fire departments,
you would find a lot of people who have a kind of a thing about fires that they're working out. And we hope they're working it out by putting them out. But the fact that there's a way buried in the morning news story today. There's this strange description of one of the volunteer firemen and his obsession with making cans of compressed cheese explode up into the air.
There are areas that no matter how much I know about things that I don't want to know about, and those parts of psychology just know it's better off not knowing.
Yeah, but they're obviously going to have to dig deep into this. I wrote yesterday about another aspect of it, which is the fact that the mayor of West has joined Governor Oops in saying that.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Yes.
I always enjoyed Molly Ivins' description, our former colleague at the Herald, of of the governor as Governor Hare. Have we officially changed from Governor Hare to Governor Oops?
Well, I don't know if it's official. I just can't get the oops out of my mind. Every time I think of him, I just see him there saying, oops. And sort of a defining moment. And his hair's not as good as it used to be.
Well, then it will be. Then Governor Oops it is.
Yeah. I heard an anecdote from a fellow reporter who covered him in 2010 in the Republican primary against Kay Bailey. And this guy was covering him in Houston at some very River Oaks high-tone couture, lots of rich Republican ladies thing, lots of diamonds and pearls. And he was sitting behind two of these ladies. Now, this is 2010, which is 3 years ago. And he heard one of them turn to the other and say, "Oh my, Rick is still a fine-looking man, is he not?" And the other one sighed, said, "Yes, he is. It's too bad he's dumb as a post." So I think Republicans have always known.
Governor Oops it is.
Yeah. Anyway, the mayor of West has joined our governor in saying that the last thing they need down there in West is any more safety regulation. No more government regulation. That's not the lesson of what happened there. That people in West are still firmly opposed to the kinds of regulations that might have required this fertilizer company to keep its explosive chemicals farther away from schools and nursing homes, which is interesting. People have a right to their worldview, and it's a place where people just mistrust and dislike government. And that was on the front page of the morning news. On the front page of the New York Times. No, wait, I'm sorry. That was on the page of the New York Times.
Right.
The fact that they still don't want any regulation, they don't like government. On the front page of the morning news was the fact that people are very unhappy with how long it's taking them to get their FEMA money. And I just, somehow, I see a contradiction there.
Well, I've always said, and I've said this in public many times before, that when the governor said it was okay for us to Texas to secede, I always thought, as an experiment, it might be kind of fun to try, because the minute we left and the military base in Wichita Falls closed, and the military base in Abilene closed, and the military base in the hospital in San Antonio closed,
right,
and they stopped getting the federal highway money,
right,
it would be interesting to see all of a sudden how much more quickly everybody want to get back into the United States.
Yeah, and all of the money that flows into both education and law enforcement. Yeah, in the case of West, it seems to me that this is a tough one because of what they've been through, but decisions have been sort of taken by default there in the past. That they.
I think the other thing, Jim, about what happened, and as horrible as it was, is that if you look at what happened and you go, well, maybe we should have done things differently, then immediately, whose fault is it?
Yeah.
And I think it's a small town, and I've lived in a small town.
Right.
My dad grew up in a small town, and I don't want to use the word denial because I'm certainly no psychologist, but I'm curious. It's got to be that much more difficult to make a change, because these are your friends who were killed. These are people that you've known your entire life, and to change the way you think, are you suddenly saying it's my fault? And who wants to say that?
You're absolutely right, and you don't sling around accusations of fault in a small town where you got to live with each other. It is a lot different in a place where you have to live with each other, as opposed to urban dwelling where you can take a hike, and when you've burned out all of your relations with your neighbors, just move to another neighborhood.
Or you don't even have to move, you just don't leave the house. Right. Those poor people in Cleveland.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Great example. I think we're coming up on another break here. Pledge Drive 972-647-1893. Open your hearts, open your billfolds. 972-647-1893.
Knon would like to thank you for supporting community radio. Your donations continue to keep the voice of the people on the air. Did you know that many companies offer a matching donation when you make a pledge to KNON? Ask your company if they have a matching program. When your employer matches your pledge, KNON reaches its goal twice as fast, bringing you more of the music you love.
This is William, your videographer for the KNON talk shows. You can watch Get Off My Lawn by going to the KNON.org website. Click on schedules and choose Get Off My Lawn's page. Scroll to the bottom and choose your favorite show to watch. This show will be ready for viewing by Tuesday lunchtime. Have a great day.
Get off my lawn.
Hey, babes, I'll take one.
Jim Schutze back with Get Off My Lawn. We've while we were off the air, we've had a little in-house correction we need to note on some confusion that we expressed earlier about whether City Council District 14 candidate Philip Kingston is a Democrat or a Republican, even though that's not important because these are nonpartisan elections and we don't care, right? But the fact is he's a Democrat. There has been an attempt by the Abtahi campaign, his principal opponent, to paint Kingston as like a member of the Tea Party or something, which is really out there. Really crazy and sort of desperate, I think. I mean, if you know Kingston, he's a smart, reasonable, middle-of-the-road guy with neighborhood interests in mind. But Tea Party?
That's just it. In Dallas City Council elections, there are the two parties, quote unquote, are neighborhood guys, neighborhood people, and downtown people.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about the definition of neighborhood, what a neighborhood candidate is that changes depending on which neighborhood you're in.
Right.
If you're in far north Dallas, if you're in Preston Hollow, their views of what a neighborhood candidate should do are completely different than in Oak Cliff, North Oak Cliff, in East Dallas, in Lake Highlands.
Right.
And so, I mean, once again, it's incredibly confusing.
There tend to be these rubber meets the road issues, even where it's really hard to distinguish between the two. I think with Staubach Gates and Leland Burke, it seems to be gas drilling. The last time I heard, Staubach Gates kind of couldn't quite tell you how she stood on that, and Burke's against it. When they can't quite tell you, that usually tells the story. In District 14, Abtahi has Bobby Abtahi, who's another candidate. The big three are Philip Kingston, Jim Rogers, and Bobby Abtahi. And Abtahi's got all the money. And he can't quite tell you how he stands on the toll road. He says it's a divisive question, therefore he doesn't want to answer it. And I've said this to him, that means you're for it in District 14.
The interesting thing, watching what's going to happen in 14 and a couple of other contested districts where there's a lot of money being spent, I'm curious if, because the turnout's going to be so low, that the money will make any difference.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The theory being, and use District 14 as an example, Jim Rogers has his base of support.
Yes.
Okay? Kingston has his base, and his would be, I guess, in the closer to downtown parts of District 14. Kingston has his in and around the M streets.
Right.
Abtahi doesn't necessarily have a base of support where people are going to turn out.
Yeah.
So his money typically then would get voters who don't have a commitment to vote. But in an election where there's no turnout, those voters don't exist.
He would get the people who are there to vote for...
Who would do their duty by voting.
Yeah.
And those people aren't voting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd be curious. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but to me, and I think the same thing can be said in Preston Hollow, where you've got name recognition, Roger Staubach's daughter.
Right.
And then you've got the candidate endorsed by the previous two council people.
Right.
And you're not going to change anybody's opinion with money in that case.
Yeah. They've all got money. And then we have District 1, where the news has endorsed Scott Griggs, which is very, very interesting. Scott Griggs is another great example of a guy who's not, in terms of old, flaming, hippie liberals.
You haven't seen him in any of the meetings lately, have you?
No. A, he's young. B, he's very, a lot of the way he made his way politically in District 1 was championing economic redevelopment of the district. He's a pro-business guy. It's just, whose business are we talking about? He's pro-business as long as it serves the wishes and needs of District 1 and the neighborhood and the people who are there. He's not for people coming in riding roughshod. I've differed with Griggs on some stuff. He's opposed the assigning of a lot of social service facilities to his district on the grounds that they got too many already. I don't know that I really differed with him on that. It's probably true that the city council has a place to shove those things in what they think is the path of least resistance.
And that was one reason why Griggs won originally, was the previous council member, who I don't even think we need to mention his name. But, when the people downtown said, listen, we're going to open up some places where there are going to be homeless people in your district, and he said, oh, that's fine. And
who cares?
Yeah. And it turns out his constituents didn't throw him out.
Right. But that was basically what I would think of as sort of a conservative position for Griggs to take. Griggs is really smart, and he and Hunt and Sandy Grayson, who's not opposed, brought to bear an awful lot of information that just wouldn't have been there. None of us would have known. None of us would have known that the city manager signed a secret deal with the drilling company if Griggs and Grayson and Hunt had not told us.
Hey, can I ask you a question about this? Because you've got a lot of experience, and I've seen this. Is this the only city in the country where the city manager would not have been fired, there would not have been a revolt in the streets, and let alone comparing Mary Soom, the city manager, to Jesus, which quite possibly was one of the great moments of watching politics in my entire life?
Man, all I know is that what it demonstrated is that a majority of the council believe that they work for the city manager. I think constitutionally, according to the charter, it's supposed to be the other way around. They hire and fire the city manager, but they spend their time sucking up to the city manager, and we could talk about why. It's because she farms out these little gimmies to them for their districts that they can show constituents, and it's a system of patronage, and it works. They also are all really, she and they are all beholden to the Citizens Council, where they get their money. And what that drilling thing demonstrated was that the city manager doesn't work for us.
No. And the great irony about all this is that the one time that there was the council actually agreed to reconsider the city manager form of government, our old pal Laura Miller got stuck in the middle, and it was defeated resoundingly.
Yeah, that election was, which would you rather have, the city manager system or Laura? I'm not sure that was a fair question.
No.
If it could just have been...
if we just could have waited a couple of years and gotten Ron Kirk.
Yeah.
Who did some things that I didn't necessarily agree with,
right.
But at least...
People saw him as an effective, reasonable leader.
Yes.
I think if Rawlings had been the face that people were looking at, they think, yeah, that's okay. I can handle that. City manager or eat your peas, please, Laura, whom I like and admire. I just I've told this story too many times.
Tell it one more time.
I was interviewed by a guy who was an out-of-town reporter doing a profile of her when she was mayor, and he asked me what she was like, and I described all of her bad traits. in some detail. And he said, wow, she sounds like the ideal Dallas Observer columnist. And I said, well, you know what? She was. Nobody will ever match her. So we've settled that question. How about trying a Dallas Observer columnist as the mayor? We've done that, and I think the jury's in on that one.
So, because I did try to get you to run.
Yeah. Well, I thought, run for office?
Run for mayor?
I didn't know that's what you meant. You just said run. And I didn't... people tell me that all the time.
No, I mean, it would have been fun. I mean, even if you'd lost, it would have been fun to do.
Yeah. I have this problem. I'm ashamed to admit it, and it goes back to what we were saying before the show about city council races. I hate this, but and it's true in my whole family. It's a genetic thing. We have to eat, and so we have to earn livings at our house. My wife and I share that task pretty equally. But that's the thing about the city council. Now they get this salary, token salary. What is it now? 35 grand?
Something like that.
37. Yeah. Before they didn't get anything. And that was all part and parcel of the so-called city manager system. You want to make sure that you don't get these dangerous people in there who might actually do something. It's great that people like Griggs, Kingston, Hunt are willing to do it, and they keep working somehow. But man, it's tough.
No, it's funny because that you mentioned that. I know several people, including some good friends of mine, who've been approached about running for the council, and the point they always bring up is, I've got kids, I got to pay for college, and so if you look, and which makes what Angela Hunt has done. And I'll just say this one more time because I guess it'll be the last time anybody will say anything about her, because she'll be out of a job in a couple of weeks. Makes what she's done all the more amazing. She's led the sensible, good government resistance to the foolishness that we have to put up with. She's done it while having 2 children.
Right.
And I went the last. In fact, I stopped going to the budget town hall meetings because I wanted to just stand up and scream. Yeah. But the last one I went to, she just had her first child, and she and her husband were there, and I'm watching this, and I'm going, she's so much better a human being than I could ever be, because she's got and leopard showed up, which is another story altogether. So it's a budget town hall meeting with a bunch of angry Lakewood and East Dallas people. She's got the kid there. Leopard shows up, and she was pleasant and nice the whole time. It was amazing.
And Paul, her husband,
yes,
is a very bright, some kind of tech guy who I think earns a pretty good living.
Computers,
yeah,
internet,
and so that makes a difference too. But it's still a huge sacrifice for them. I asked her recently what she's going to do. After the city council, she hemmed and hawed a little bit, but it sounds to me like earn a living. And I was surprised by myself. I thought, I should have been thinking, oh no, this will be a great loss to politics. But instead I thought, oh good, she's paid her dues.
No, if you and I, who don't have to get yelled at in person, get tired of doing this, get tired of the foolishness. Can you imagine if you have to sit down in the horseshoe at the city council every Wednesday and get yelled at?
And I have to say that for all of them. That is a thing that is true of everybody who takes that pledge and goes and sits in those chairs down there. They do have to take the guff, and there's a lot of it, and then they have to make decisions. I was on a board of a small nonprofit once, and I offered him a lot of criticism, constructive, I think, of everything they were doing. And finally, the president of the board said, Jim, this is great. These are great criticisms. Did you have a thought about what we might do here? And I kind of said, well, do? That's not my department. I just find fault, man. I'm not in the do.
I'm a Dallas Observer columnist.
Right. What's this do stuff? But it is tough, and you have to respect all of them for taking it on. And that's why these decisions we make when we vote for council members are very important. It's who's going to take it on. We ought to feel lucky to have a chance, just as you're lucky to call us up at 972-647-1893 and vote to keep us on the air. It's also a vastly more important privilege to go to the polls today and decide who's going to represent us at City Hall. These are important decisions. Like them or hate them, these are important people. We both wish they could be more important in the scheme of things.
But the only way that's going to happen is if the people who don't vote understand that. Cal Jolson at SMU told me this, and I'm trying to figure out a way that it's not true, but he says people in city elections vote their property values, and as long as they think their property values aren't being threatened, they're not going to care. Yeah. And everything those people in the horseshoe do, whether you live in far north Dallas or far south Dallas or west Dallas or wherever, everything they do affects your property value.
Yeah, and if you wait to find out that there's a drilling rig in your park, and you say, well, there can't be a drilling rig in that'll wreck the park, that'll wreck my property values. I remember that the city council voted not to allow that to happen. This must be a mistake. It's too late to find out that actually the city manager did a secret under the table deal with the drilling companies, and then the council backed her up, and so guess what?
And then you've got they're drilling for gas and fracking in your park, and you didn't, and it's your fault basically because you didn't pay attention.
And you got to put people, and this is the toughest lesson. You made a very good point that you have the two political parties are neighborhood and downtown. If you're neighborhood and you got neighborhood interests, you've got to put people in those chairs who will have backbones and who will defend those interests. People you can trust to stick up for you.
And it's that simple. I mean, that's the whole reason that we vote. The only thing, the great irony about modern American politics is not that everybody hates everybody else and that we don't get along. The great irony is that we all agree on the same things with which we should vote.
Yeah, and then we don't.
And then we're stuck with the foolishness that we're stuck with.
Yeah. So, go vote. But before you go vote, don't go vote just now. Don't head out the door this minute. Before you vote, pick up your phone and call.
Very nicely done there.
972-647-1893. You can call us on the way to the polling place. It's okay. 972-647-1893. Give us some money here at KNON. And then when you're in the polling place, call us again and say loudly, who were those candidates you said we should vote for?
We didn't do that, did we?
No, we didn't. We wouldn't try to break the rules on that kind of stuff. Don't break the rules when you vote, but do vote. And do call us up, 972-647-1893. Help keep KNON on the air. They what was it they said in Austin? Keep Austin weird.
Keep Austin weird, that's it.
And what do we say in Dallas?
I believe in Dallas we say, "Where's mine?"
Right. Okay. Vote to say, "Where's mine?" And
no, and that would in KNON it should be, "Let's change what we say in Dallas."
Yeah. Give us a call, 972-647-1893. Your support is very important. We want to thank Christian Dietering again for his generous support during the hour, and it's not too late for you to call up this very instant and make a big fat pledge. Remember, for those pledges over $200,000, I have agreed to be interred with you at the end of life. So that's a
hell of a premium.
Yeah, but I'm willing to do it. I can't promise what shape I'll be in or what you'll actually physically be interred with, but it'll have my name on it. So $100,000, be buried with Jim. 972-647-1893. Jeff, thanks so much
for
coming this week. It's always great to have you here. And don't forget to vote. Don't forget to give us some money. And keep those two things separate, okay? See you next week. Get off my lawn.
Man, on down the road. Down what road? You in the city now, my friend. Yeah, but he's walking.
You are listening to KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas, Fort Worth. Pledge now. Call 972-647-1893 now to make your pledge.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to knon.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.